I have the key to what many call the ultimate iteration of the air-cooled 911. This is a 1997 911 Turbo, and I'm going to take it for a drive and give you my impressions. Be sure to log into your YouTube account, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. The 993 generation of the 911 Turbo was a significant technological jump from the 964 Turbo, employing some of what we learned on the 959 supercar for the first time. It had two turbochargers and all-wheel drive like the 959, as well as the Weissach axle, a bit of genius engineering that passively reduced liftoff oversteer tendencies using changes to suspension geometry under load. And of course, the Turbo was one of the most powerful road-going Porsches ever made up to that point. It was the last and best of its breed. A running, driving 993 Turbo in decent condition will command at least $200,000 in 2023. In 1997, a Turbo's MSRP was around $105,000, and this one costs $116,420 with all of its options. It wasn't an entry-level Porsche when it was new. It isn't now, and it will never be. The reasons are simple. Again, it was the last air-cooled 911 Turbo, the most powerful air-cooled 911 Turbo short of the uber-rare Turbo S, and the demand to experience it far outpaces the supply of cars. The twin turbocharged 3.6-liter flat six makes 408 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque, and that was enough to accelerate this turbo from 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds and a top speed of 180 miles an hour. Gears were shifted solely with a 6-speed manual transmission. While the 993 Carrera weighed in at 3,020 pounds, the Turbo's all-wheel drive, more standard equipment, and the twin turbocharging system increased the curb weight to 3,307 pounds. Remember, the Turbo was never meant to be a lightweight sports car, but a heavy-hitting Grand Tourer. This particular model had a short options list that enhanced the Grand Touring sensibility. The aluminum chrome package added aluminum instrument dials, metal door sills, and oval stainless steel exhaust pipes, though this car now wears a car graphic exhaust. The carbon package added carbon fiber trim to the instrument panel, lower dashboard, and the door panel trim. Another special option was the extended center console in leather. So that vault-like close, there's nothing like a 911's door closing. So here we have a 16,000 mile 993 Turbo 1997. And for those of you that have a G-body 911, a 964, when you sit in it, you'll certainly recognize the layout. Not a whole lot had changed over those years. Some upgrades. But this car in particular has full leather everywhere. And then you notice the exclusive carbon package. It just wraps carbon all around you from this side here, all the way across the dash, up in the around the gauges, and all the way to the other side. You also notice this sort of aluminum package that they have for the 5 gauges itself. The one unique thing on this car, which I had never seen before, was this center console. This is actually an option for this car, and it's called an extended leather center console, and I believe it was $2,000 to $3,000 extra. This little cavity here, if you followed our podcast, we talked about whether or not this area was for something special, like a stereo component or something like that. I think it was just really a place for you to put your wallet in. It's felt lined. It's finished very well. I believe all of this is factory. Those of you that are watching, if you know something different, please let me know. But it's finished very factory-like. The seats in this car aren't really anything that special. It's the standard seat. It's not a sports seat. But for a street car, hey, maybe this is a 993 Turbo for comfort. This is where it's going to help with that rating. So as I press the clutch down, for those of you that don't know, the pedal setup in this car, it's actually hinged from the floor. So if you've never driven a vehicle with this pedal setup, it feels a little different. You have to pick up your heel a little bit as you press down on it. And then when you release, it's again, you kind of pick up your heel. Whereas for me, when I drive a car that has pedals hinged from the top, sometimes my heel just kind of drags across the bottom and just stays there and gives me the ability to provide a smoother release for the clutch. But like I said, it feels very familiar, but this is, such a special car. This is the last iteration of the air-cooled series. Many people will argue with you and say it's the last of the best, the analog, so on and so forth. And this happens to be the turbo version. So you're talking about well over 400, I think it's 408 horsepower, 400 foot-pounds of torque, 3.6 liter twin turbo. So it's a lot going on back there. It's also all-wheel drive. So you're going to have full traction when you do the launches. And let's see how different this car really is from just a standard 993 or from what I'm used to in 87 911. With the 993, with its immobilizer system, you actually have to press unlock and then start up within 60 seconds or so. Little trick. All right. So by modern standards, this is a pretty long shift throw. This is completely stock. The effort is not that bad, but it is a long throw compared to modern day cars. It's a 6-speed, and I said the clutch again is hinged from the bottom, so you got to get used to that. Here we go. That is a long throw. You can definitely feel the power in this car. It's a coolish day, so we're not going to go crazy with speed with these Cup 2s still being pretty cold. The travel pedal on the clutch is light and it's far, but easy to modulate. Quite easy to drive. Stock suspension. The exhaust on this, hopefully we'll do some cold start clips later. This actually has a car graphic exhaust and it cackles and pops, which is pretty cool. We'll get on this a little bit quicker road here. As far as brakes, nice and firm pedal. The ride is very comfortable. In a second. On a big road here. Let's do this. It pulls effortlessly, very smooth. If there is turbo lag, people talk about turbo lag in earlier cars. This one, it seems very linear to me. I mean, not like a 930 where it's sort of an on-off situation. So this road is not perfect. As you can tell, I'm bopping up and down, but it's very comfortable. The suspension on this turbo is very supple. The steering wheel is assisted, unlike a 87, let's say. But it feels good, not too light. Car tracks well. Again, it's pretty interesting to drive a car. I haven't driven an older car in a while, and these shift throws are pretty long. They do feel, it feels like at the top end going into third, it feels a little rubbery, and I think that's just the personality of these cars and the way the linkages are set up. But it's not distracting. It's just, again, going from modern day cars to something that was built in 1997. It's a throwback to sort of that old technology and what they were doing back then. Everything falls into place. Seeing the tachometer in front is just what you're used to. It's got the red mark on the tach at about 6,500, 6,600 RPM. Car idles extremely well. That's what's nice about a stock car. Like, it just does what it was meant to be. It's not modified where it's idling all funny and hard to drive, and you're trying to balance between the clutch and keeping the revs up so it doesn't stall out. This thing just works. And it's fast. It's crazy fast. 400 horsepower in a stock vehicle on a road like this is more than enough. You can get into trouble quickly, but you could also drive it, as a daily driver and go get groceries, go to the restaurant. This car is in black. To car enthusiasts, they definitely would notice this car. I think to the average person, it's quite the sleeper. I mean, it is a two-door coupe, so people already know it's sort of a sporty car, but I think to the masses, this car just kind of blends in with traffic, which is a good thing, because sometimes you don't want to attract too much attention while you're enjoying such a nice car. Now, unfortunately, the location of where this car is, there aren't that many back loopy roads that we could, really exercise it. But I think it's also important that we're doing a real world test drive. We're sitting in traffic, we're going to stoplights, and there's some straightaways, so to speak, that we can feel the power. And yeah, it's a real world test. The owner has upgraded to the Porsche PCCM, Porsche Communication, the latest radio. And these are all plug and play if you decide to upgrade your 993. So out here in the world of Teslas, SUVs, and just standard cars, it does feel very special to be in something like this. The power comes on really smooth. This is 408 horsepower, 3,300 pounds. So it's a small car, but it's not like a super lightweight car. It's got some mass to it, and I think that's why people refer to this car often as tank-like, because the build quality, and when you're talking about the lenses, on the gauge faces and the materials that they're using, it's a heavy-duty car, and it feels like it. It feels like a chunk of granite that you're just kind of piloting, but this chunk of granite moves along pretty quickly. So a lot of folks these days, clamor for the air-cooled experience. And a lot of times I tell people, you really need to drive one to make a determination if an air-cooled car is for you. Are they cool? Absolutely. But, the earlier air-cooleds are, there are some things that you have to give up at creature comforts or ride quality or maybe just NVH. But if you want to get into an air-cooled that is, by modern standards, super livable, then a 993, especially if you want a fast one, a 993 turbo is where it's at. Like this car, really, I would not mind just really packing a few things here and just heading west to California to Porsche Parade. Like this thing will gobble up miles easily, comfortably, has all your creature comforts that you need. No, not too much, just enough. Just the bare essentials. Heat, air conditioning, communication system, a great view. What's nice with these cars is all of these posts and stuff are so thin. So the greenhouse on this car, you just look around, you see everything, which again is nice because it gives you that very special feel that you don't normally get in a modern day car with safety standards and design standards. This all comes together so nicely. Now this car pulls so linearly. I can't feel the turbo lag if there is any. So if those of you that own one of these and you can tell me where the turbo lag is, I can't tell. It pulls strong. It's so smooth. What a fantastic car. So let's talk a little bit about the exterior of a 993 and 993 turbo. When it went from the 993 to the 996, a lot of people complained, obviously, because of the front headlights, because it was less curvaceous than a 993. So it's very distinctive to be driving a 993. Now, I'm also a 996 owner, so trust me, I love the headlights, I love the way it looks, and I think it's coming into its own. But the traditionalists will tell you this is the design that you want, the curviness, the round or oval headlights up front. It harkens back to the early 911s in a lot of people's eyes much more. This black color, I also have a black 911. I will tell you it's one of the toughest colors to live with, but if you have it polished right and if the lighting is correct and if it's clean, it's so hard to find a better looking car than a black car. It really is. The weight of the clutch, the brakes, the pedal setup, it's so easy to drive. As I said, the throws on the shifter are long, but you know, they're weighted, feels nice, not too heavy. The steering wheel is very nice. Usually I'm not a fan of this 4-spoke steering wheel, but the way they've upgraded the perimeter of the wheel, it looks good in my eyes in this form. What an absolute treat it is to be driving this car. You know, like I said, most people will tell you that this is the last of the great ones, and to be able to drive a 16,000 mile example is quite the treat. So the 408 horsepower comes in at around 5,700 RPM, and it pulls so smoothly, so smoothly. No muss, no fuss, no pops, no cackles. Smooth ride, super comfortable. For the ratings, as far as taking this car to a car show and where would it end up, I think most people, especially if you're going to an area where there's a bunch of enthusiasts hanging around, this car definitely would be at the front row. So I would give this, for the car show rating, I would give it a 8.75, right up there. As far as a daily driver, the value on this car is going to make you hesitate as driving it for a daily driver. But could you drive it as a daily driver? Absolutely. There is nothing that would keep me from driving other than the possibility of ruining the value of it, and subjecting it to a lot of miles and such. But this car is so incredibly comfortable, so easy to drive. You could easily drive this as a daily driver. So with that, I'm also going to rate this pretty high and give this car daily driver an 8. As far as the long trip, I think that's where this one's going to even excel. You have plenty of room in the front. You can throw stuff in the back here. These seats are super comfortable. You have all your HVAC. You have cruise control, a very comfortable clutch, shifter. I would drive to Parade in this car and go cross country in it in a heartbeat. So I would give this also for a long trip 8.5 again. As far as fun factor, this car is not exactly, let's call it hardcore in terms of like crazy amount of power and or speed. Don't get me wrong, 400 plus 408 horsepower is a lot of horsepower. The all-wheel drive, the fun factor of this car, I would say it's more close to an 8. And the reason being is because it's not diabolical. I think if this car was somehow tuned, if it was two-wheel drive only and had a little bit more power, it might be diabolical and then would be sort of more fun to drive. But I think because this is such a well put together package that is absolutely drivable, that kind of pulls down the fun factor because I feel so confident in it. So that might sound counterintuitive. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that correctly. It's a fun car to drive. It's got a lot of power. It's got a lot of grip, but it's very supple in a lot of ways. So if you enjoyed this clip, please give us a like. Appreciate you supporting our channel. Until next time.